Iceland is a truly mini society, 330,000 people. But in the space of 100 years, we managed to build up a strong welfare society, with the main emphasis on full employment. 1% unemployment on average since the Second World War. Although the world may be controlled by interests, ideas play no small part, and Iceland got its share of the wave of the neoliberalist ideology in the 80s and 90s. I worked as a television journalist for 10 years, from the late 70s and well into the 80s, experiencing at first hand the assault the neoliberals were making on ideas and values in our society. Also in Iceland we had Hayek, Friedman, Buchanan and the whole lot visiting regularly, helping to prepare the ground for the political harvest we have seen first on our menu and later on our tables from the 90s onwards. The harvest from the neoliberal garden consisted of privatization, appearing in all kinds of wrappings, PFIs, public-private partnership, etc., etc. The content, of course, always the same. Make the lie big, make it simple, keep saying it, and eventually people will believe it. Not all people, but all too many people. I lived in Great Britain for a few years in the 70s. I remember that for a period there was a fashion in shoes with very thick bottoms. It was a horrible fashion nobody liked. But for quite some time there was nothing else to be found in the shops. Even if you were 7 feet tall and desperately wanted to look smaller, you got nothing but the thick bottom shoes. So it has been with political ideas for all too long. The big providers in the political arena have had nothing to offer but products nobody really wants. In fact, old products, long time proven outdated, but offered under ever newer brand names. One should be careful as a visitor talking about one's host. But as far as the new Labour Party was concerned, I sometimes wondered if it would go all the way in its rebranding and call itself the new party. Because for us, who have followed British politics, there has been a time one asked if there was any Labour left. This question did arise in connection with the present crisis. We are now experiencing a frantic race to save the capitalist system. The system that was supposed to have become victorious from the battle of ideas. It has been said that victors need not care about the truth. But truth will prevail in the end. As the smoke settles and the sky clears, the world will not be the same. The governments of Europe and America are playing with high stakes on lousy cards. The British new Labour government used anti-terror law to take down the Icelandic banking system on the grounds that the Icelandic banks were threatening the stability of the British economy. In spite of this imminent threat, the British government had advised local authorities to deposit their savings in these same Icelandic banks, and this resulted in a call by Parliament for an investigation. Of course, the collapse of the Icelandic banks has been serious for many people and institutions who have lost a big part of their savings and deposits in the Icelandic banks. But by UK standards, these problems are not of the enormity the British government wants us to believe. The UK government felt it would be a good idea to place the biggest financial institution of a small and friendly nation on a list with Al-Qaeda and North Korea. Why is such a desperate and incredible measure taken? To save the British economy? To save jobs in Britain? No, it is among other measures taken to make sure that nobody learns the truth about capitalism. It's an attempt to divide and govern. Furthermore, it's an attempt to divert attention. Why did Britain pick on us? Wanted to nail a little guy to set an example? Lehman Brothers was allowed to go under the United States, but not Bear Stearns. The context is that 90% of Lehman's creditors were outside the United States, while in the case of Bear Stearns, the creditors were inside the United States. When Lehman Brothers broke down, they moved billions of pounds from London on the last day. They sacked most of the London staff, but kept the New York offices almost intact. So London lost out, but not a word was uttered of criticism in Whitehall. Britain did not use anti-terror law against the United States, although many British creditors were harmed. The power of friendship, or just the power of bullying. In Iceland, the banking crisis is having disastrous consequences. From the outset of the crisis, it was clear that Iceland as a nation could be particularly hard hit. When the collapse of an Icelandic bank, Landsbankinn, operating in Britain was imminent, the Icelandic government made it clear that foreign obligations would be guaranteed according to law. The question of this agreement has been how to interpret the legal obligations of the Icelandic state, meaning the Icelandic taxpayers, not only the present generation of taxpayers, but also our children and grandchildren. The day after the Landsbankinn was taken down, the British government ordered that another Icelandic bank operating in Britain, Kaupthing, be invaded and taken into administration. This was done with reference to anti-terror law. The consequence of this was that this bank, the biggest bank in Iceland, which I believe was at that time fully able to meet all obligations of its UK deposits, was forced into default, causing irreparable damage not only to the Icelandic banking system and Icelandic-owned firms operating in Britain, but to Icelandic society at large. Why the Labour government would act in this way is incomprehensible. Despite the propaganda, the spin, the headlines, the British government was not at all protecting public interests by its actions. Most people realize that the people of Britain and the people of Iceland are not to blame. It is the unjust, mindless, corrupt and obsolete capitalist system that is to blame. This is not about shopkeepers, manufacturing, farming or trade. We are talking about social injustice of proportions not seen for 100 years, which suddenly took over the hearts and minds of the world and prompted even the guardian angel of social justice of Europe, the British Labour Party, to become their new party, using the language twist of Big Brother. It even happened just about the year 1984. And as a logical consequence of the quest for more concentration of capital comes the longing for concentration of power as well. In the end, this is all about whose side you are on. We have seen laws changed to the advantage of capital. We have seen regulations abolished also in the interest of capital, not in the interest of people. Now the struggle ahead is about whether the obvious lessons will be learned. That it is absolutely necessary that ownership of the means of production be in the hands of the many and not the few.